Hi, folks. We're Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of Western young women going on vacation to the Islamic republics around the world. You know, it could be Pakistan or Bangladesh or, I don't know, Indonesia or parts of the Middle East and so on. So now the reason they go to some of these places is because if you're on a bit of a budget, then these places or parts of North Africa, then there's some. If you go in the off season, there's some pretty good deals to be had. So again, if you're on a tight budget, you can go to some of these places and stay in places like youth hostels or the cheaper hotels, and you can eat fairly cheaply in some of these places as well. Anyway, everyone's probably heard of the amount of young Western women, girl boss type chicks who are, mass migration is wonderful. Anyone that disagrees is Hitler, and so on. And they go to these places, and they're the big girl boss. And remember, they come from an environment where if any man offends them, they can scream misogynist, fascist, and Nazi at them, and that's enough. Or they can go running to HR. And say, "Oh, go and get that guy for me," or they can even go to the police and say, "He makes me I feel threatened with Jimmy Jack or Billy Bob around, so that Mr. Policeman, you got to move him, or you got to deal with him for me," and they'll get all that. So they have this sense of superiority that doesn't translate very well into the reality of the world outside of the Western globalist controlled insanity. So they end up going to these third world, Islamic republics again, mainly on a budget thing and for budget reasons primarily, but they fancy they can take all their girl boss attitudes with them. And they also dress in a way that's viewed as deeply offensive to these people. Now, I've been to quite a few of the Islamic republics on business, and I'm staying at Western hotels, the 5-star Western hotels and so on. So I'm not anywhere near the hostels, but when I've gone by, like going around in a taxi, or where I've managed to get some time off to go and look at some of the local sites, I'll see other tourists there, and Western tourists. Now, while I'm in these places. Not many people, particularly if you're considered to be professional, not many people wear shorts. Showing off flesh for women is just not on, and even a pair of shorts for men is considered something that only the lowest working class coolies and flunkies do. If you're someone of any importance, then you wear trousers. A short sleeve shirt is about as much as you can show, and you're expected really to wear a hat and so on. So. Now they cut you some slack being a Westerner. For example, I don't drink much alcohol anyway, but I do sometimes have a glass of wine with dinner, and in the Western hotels they cut you a bit of slack there. But I'm very, very mindful of their local laws, customs, and the devotions to their religion, Islam in this case. So I'm very mindful of it, and determined to show respect and deference to it, or to avoid situations where I may even make a faux pas in some way. And that's just my view. Now, I'm there on business, of course. I'm being paid to do it. I have to get on with the people there, so I don't want to do anything that may offend them or in any way impede or disrupt the business. But a tourist maybe, would see it slightly differently. But when I go around these places, now these places are, this one I'm thinking of now was sort of really slap bang on the equator, so it is hot. So Western people that come from North European climates would find it incredibly hot and would want to wear minimal clothing. I do understand that. But I see these women, and the way they walk around, it's like they fucking own the place or something, Western women. Probably lesbians, I think, in the case I'm thinking of, but not all of them. So they're wearing, tight, very tight, the briefest of brief shorts, very tight, very high cut, skimpy T-shirts with plunging necklines, no bra, the tits are almost hanging out, and there's no hair covering, and they're walking around. Now, this would be deemed offensive to anybody and everybody in that culture. The women in this culture, they do wear, again, more working class skirts, but the skirts are quite long. They're sort of between the knee and the ankle. They're that long, or certainly below the knee. But again, most of them are covered from ankle to head. They wear scarves. It's considered to be uncouth to show your hair, and many, not all, but many have full face covering or wearing partial, like the full on burqa thing. So all you have to do, you don't have to do. They will cut you slack being a Westerner. So, but you could wear a light pair of, say, linen trousers. You could wear a shirt that buttons up to the neck, again, linen or light cotton. You could do that. A bra is suggested. And you could wear just a very light, again, a light cotton scarf around your head, and that would be it. And then you're going to avoid any unwelcome attention. You're going to avoid any. But once you start walking around like that, the only sort of knowledge that these people have of Western women is because they all love to watch blonde chicks, porn video blonde chicks. That's their understanding. So if you're doing that, not only are you blaspheming as you dressed with showing lots of flesh, not only are you blaspheming their religion, but you're saying, well, hey, you're just like those porn stars or those porn chicks in the videos that we watch and ogle over. So we know what we want to do to them, and they've imagined and discussed many times how they'd like to, fuck the blonde chick, the white blonde chick porn star. So it's all, you can see it all falling into place. Now, if these women were dressed that way and part of a bigger tour group, they'd probably get away with it there. But they want to walk around like girl bosses, and then they get the consequences. Now, the other side, some people, well, what do you mean you're blaming the victim, you fucking Nazi? No, this is not about blaming the victim. You're inviting and asking for trouble. You're going to a part of the world with completely different values. They're very devout, very pious. They have an Islamic code that they live by, and you are effectively rubbing it in their face, and that's going to invite negative attention, and it's going to invite all sorts of trouble. Now, if there's an option they can get. The morality police might come along and say, listen, you better cover up. How dare you speak to me that way? I'm going to go to human resources, showing you, bring the manager to me. That Karen shit won't work. You're in a different place. That's just not going to cut it. So the police will give you an out, and they'll say, papers, please, which is code speak for, we want to bribe. So it's okay, well, if you go straight back to the hostel and dress properly, we won't arrest you and drag you off, but you got to give us $100, those sorts of things. And again, you want to avoid all that. But I see this all around, wherever I traveled around, wherever I went, I saw the same thing. And somehow, women getting hold of some booze and, walking around staggering drunk and this sort of thing. And again, you're attracting it. If a man did it, that they would attract negative attention. But other than in Western hotels, you want to, a woman wants to wear a Western bathing costume in the hotel, that's fine. They don't bother you with they do cut you a lot of slack in those places. But as soon as you're out on the street, the minute you leave that hotel, you are now in a sharia law Islamic republic, and if you don't want trouble, you're expected to behave accordingly. And for women, regardless of whether you think you're a big tough girl boss and so on, you have to behave in a way that's consistent with the local thing. Now, I've had female, work colleagues who, I want to come to Islamic Republic. I want to come with you to the Islamic Republic. Well, why? Oh, I just want to show those people that I'm a big tough girl boss, and if they mess with me, I'll get the human resource department on. No. You're not coming if that's your attitude. Why do I have to cover my hair? Oh, it's misogynist. You're not fucking coming, all right? I'm not putting the company in a position where you're going to embarrass the company and misrepresent the company. These people want to know that we will act in a manner that's polite and respectful of their traditions and customs and laws. That's the priority. If you can't behave that way, if you're going to give some juvenile girl boss bullshit, then you're not coming. It says, "Oh, you're just a misogynist." No, you're not coming. So this is part of the thing. So girls are going there. They're doing their gender studies courses or something. You think they're going to export their gender studies, misandry and so on to the misandry, the hatred of men, their misandry to the third world and this Islamic Republic. No, it's not going to happen. But again, all they have to do is conform. There are some videos online where on YouTube that say, look, if you want to go to these places, you want to avoid trouble, this is how you dress. And these women or anyone going there, whether men in other ways, should appreciate and understand that and behave accordingly. And if you do, you'll be unlikely to have any problems. Now, just we look at, say, in places like Paris, a woman will walk down a street, a part of Paris, or in England, it doesn't matter, where it's an Islamic little micro Islamic republic in Paris, and walk down the street with something very provocative, in heels and a micro mini skirt and all this sort of stuff. And she get a lot of cat calls, and a lot of men were following her, asking her if she wants to have a fuck and this sort of stuff. And then that same woman though can go back and walk down the street with full Islamic covering, the scarf and the burqa and whatever else, and won't even get a sideways glance. So there are, and I think that's a reality. It just needs to be is it a desirable reality? Should people with those views be imported into the West? Well, that's another debate. But the reality is, if you do behave in a way consistent with their culture and Sharia law, then they won't bother you. You've been a Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.